All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elected nation of Israel. And this is going to be a lesson on this particular scripture in Isaiah, the 5th chapter and the 8th verse, which says this: Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. And what that's going into is how in this society, right, or how even in any society or in any civilization, you're not supposed to build houses, for example, attached to each other, right? So really, the fully I forget the name, and the name skips my mind right now. The attached houses that are joined together, right, is really off, right? Especially if those people are not your own family. So if, let's say, when you have all these houses that are along one road, that is all really just one long building, right, with several different doors, right, to where you can only get into certain parts of the building through one door. That's what a lot of these houses really are, that you see on a lot of these streets. But in this world, all of those different inhabitants will be completely different families, as in completely different clans of the same nation, or there'll be completely different people of all different nations, which is the case in most times in this world, man. And that just breeds to a lot of wickedness. Ultimately, it leads to hatred, right? Which is why people are supposed to have their own land. And I've heard brothers say this before anyway, but when you start to really see certain things, then you understand completely why, right? Because that also then, if you even have different people of the same tribe, but of different clans, that can lead to covetousness, because everybody kind of wants to have their own privacy, man, right? Whereas in this world, you can't even really have much privacy. Let's say you put up and I'm not saying this is something that I've did, but let's say you put up like a 6-foot fence around your house, right? Well, even still, your next door neighbor can still see what's going on in your property from their window in the tops of their house anyway. So you've got some privacy when you might be down in your garden and they might be down in their garden, but you don't have full privacy, which is another thing to look forward to in the kingdom, because we're going to have our own land in the kingdom. But among the land that we have, we're going to have our own portion within the land. Whereas in this world, so lucky, 1 second. Whereas in this world, you don't really get the time to have any privacy with anything, man. You don't get to have any like proper spare time where you can just dwell among your own people. Like if you come outside and have a barbecue, which I'm not saying that that's something that I particularly desire to do, but I'm just using it as an example of things that I know people do in this world. Your neighbor might be hanging out their clothes outside, and now they got to bring their clothes in so that the clothes don't smell of smoke. So both people are disconvenienced, because they might complain about that, but then they don't get to dry their clothes. And this is just small things. It seems small, right? But it ends up being a big deal thing, because you don't even get to live in your life how you want to live it as a person, in lawful even, because it's not illegal to have a cook food outside. Neither is it illegal to hang your clothes outside. That's something that you should be able to do. But in this society, you're not really able to find peace anywhere, right? If one neighbor decides that they want to fix up their house, now the other neighbor ends up feeling envious because their neighbor has fixed up their house, and now their house looks worse than theirs, maybe. If one neighbor decides to cut their grass, which again, these are just small dumb things, it seems like, now the other neighbor wants to cut their grass. If one neighbor hangs out their clothes in a washing line a certain way, now the other neighbor is going to hang out their clothes in a clothing line a similar way. If one neighbor gets a certain car, a certain vehicle, now they're going to copy and try and mimic the same thing. If one neighbor gets their food delivery or something like that, or goes to the shop personally themselves and buys from a more expensive place, now the other neighbor might be covetous, wondering how they're able to buy food from that place and they're not able to. Like these all again seem like just small dumb things, but ultimately it ends up leading into bigger things, because then if you want to just play music at your house at a certain time of the day to maybe unwind yourself and relieve your thinking of things in your life and just relax, You can't, because your neighbor is going to complain about you playing music at a certain time. Whereas if you had your own space where you was away from other people, you could do that in peace. And they would be able to live how they want if they wanted to be quiet in peace. And again, these aren't things that I'm necessarily saying that I've did, but I'm pointing them out because these are things that people may want to do in their lives, right? That are not bad things. If you decide that you wanted to throw a party for whatever reason, right? And again, I'm not saying that I've did these things and I desire to do these things in this side of the world, but if somebody does that now, their neighbour's going to complain because they're doing that and it's keeping them awake from what they want to do. And that's why the scriptures are clear. And I'm going to read it again. Isaiah chapter 5 verse 8. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. And not only is it this inconvenience in that way, but it's not safe. And there's even things in the scriptures that say that you're not supposed to build houses that are of a certain height, and you're supposed to put battlements around the house, which having battlements around your house is actually a good thing in many ways, because you can now have an extra living space on the roof of your house, right? And also on top of that, you wouldn't have to feel unsafe that you're going to fall off. So if you wanted to just lounge on the top of your house, right, you could do that, because there'd be a thing, the house would be designed in such a way that you have battlements on top of your house, and also would have a space to get onto the roof of your house, which would allow for more living space within the house, right? Which would mean that you've got more space open to do other things, which would mean that a smaller house would actually seem bigger, because on top of every single house, you'll be able to live on top of there. You'll be able to have put certain things that would have usually in the society that we live in now been crammed all into one space. No, now them things are going to be put on top of your house. And for anyone that's ever seen what it's like to live in places like, I've never been to New York personally, but I've heard it's similar to London. And what London is like to live in, right, is absolutely ridiculous, to be honest with you. It's absolutely ridiculous. The pricing of things in London is in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous, man. Right? And the spaces that they make people live in are tiny for the most part, man. But in the kingdom, it's not gonna be a thing like that, and it's not really getting much better anywhere else over in the UK. To be honest with you, they say that same kind of thing is only going to be spread further and further throughout the UK eventually, because they're making a train line, that their hopes is to make a train line that can go from Birmingham to London in, like, I believe 45 minutes. So all that would do is then make all the people that have got money in London be able to now buy properties in the places, different places in the Midlands or wherever, and then work in London, but live in the place where the houses are cheaper. So then the house prices would end up going up more, because now there's more people to buy them. The people that have got more money would buy them houses, and then the shared houses and all that kind of stuff will just eventually end up being more and more a thing over in other parts of England. That's all that would end up happening. And that's why the scriptures say, woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place that may be placed alone in the field, because it's wicked. You're not supposed to have a tower flat that's got like hundreds of people living in there. That's not supposed to be an actual real living scenario. But in this world, that's common, right? And in certain places of the world, it's common for people to have a shared house where every single month the people that they're living with have changed, and then people have different kind of ways in which they think is hygiene. So some people might think it's hygienic to bathe themselves once a week. Some people might think it's hygienic to bathe themselves once a month. Some people might think it's hygienic to not even bathe and to just wash your foot in the sink. Some people out there might think that. I'm not one of them, but some people might think that. Whereas other people might think, oh, I'm going to bathe every single day. So then you'll end up living in a house with people that they stink. You end up living in a house with people that they don't clean their dishes. They don't wash their clothes. So their clothes just pile up and stink out the house. You end up living like that around people, and then it's going to cause a lot of confusion. But then the same thing with, even if you don't go take it to the shared housing environment and you take it to just the road, some people might live disgusting. They might do that fly tipping stuff where they just throw a dirty old mattress out in the middle of the street. And they're like, well, it's not, I didn't want it anymore, so I'm throwing it out on the street. And then that brings all kind of rats and all kind of stuff. It's just all off in this world, man. It leads, the joining of house to house leads to a whole bunch of things. Adultery, it leads to as well. Because now you'll have these houses that are all joined to each other, and a man can now watch another man's wife from day to day and try and secretly impress her and seduce her with his lifestyle. Whereas if they were not joined like that, then they couldn't do it. Women can secretly try and seduce men in certain ways. Oh, I'm gonna come outside the house now and sunbathe in the garden in a bikini when I know that my neighbor's out in the garden. You know what I mean? Like, these are things that take place in this world. And again, I'm not saying this is nothing that's personally happened to me, but these are things that we have heard. We hear people in this world. They even tell us their stories, right? And tell us some of the things that they do some of the time, man, and some of the things that they've experienced. And they tell their tales of this kind of stuff, man. People in the world talk about these kind of things. This kind of stuff goes on all the time. You should be able to have at least at least a 2-minute walk in either direction. Mate, let me even say that much: a 1-minute walk in any direction from your house, where you don't see an Edomite, man, or a heathen. But in this world, we can't. And then even in the lands that people try and say are ours, like Africa and all of that, Jamaica and all these kind of places that people claim are our countries, you can't even not see Esau there. You'll see Esau there too, man. You'll see Esau or heathen everywhere. There ain't nowhere on this earth that you can go to where you're not by them, yet they're the main ones complaining about immigration when they're in everyone else's land doing things, just being there all over the place, man. Let me get a scripture. You know, this is that's not the one I'm looking for, you know. I don't think it was anyway. I think it's in Habakkuk. It says that they join people to people or something like that. Here we go. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as deaf, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto himself all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And when you see what's going on with China right now, with how they've got these crazy, well-designed vehicles, man, these electric cars, right, that can do tank turns, that can be buoyant for half an hour, right, that can move like boats, that are better than Esau's vehicles but cheaper. You can understand why Esau's heaped unto himself all people, because he never wanted another nation to be able to show that they're better than him, which is the reason for all the tariffs. If they really had a better product than every other nation, okay, they could still say we're going to put a tariff on you, but then what about if the other countries put the same tariff that you're putting on their vehicle? Then what's going to happen? Are people going to stop buying your vehicle and buy their own nation's vehicle? But Esau didn't want any of the other nations to ever prove that they were better than him. But China's proved that they're better than him in the whole vehicle making thing, right? Jake's proved that they're better than Esau in sports, in music, in smarts too, right? And we've proved that we're better than you in righteousness. Because people are coming to the Israelites about problems in this earth, and they want to hear what we've got to say about it. You got in this woman, which she's kind of bugged out anyway, Jaguar White, and she's all up around all of these different people, giving her opinion on exposing this and exposing that. The people that wanted her opinion on this and on that, right? But why do they want our opinion for? And when are you Edomites going to start exposing your people? Everyone's always coming to us trying to want us to expose our people, which we do, talk about the wickedness of our people. But when are you all going to expose the wickedness of your people? You're in every single aspect of this earth. You run all, you so-called white people and you small hats, you own every single industry in this world. If you really wanted to expose something and you was really righteous, it would be exposed, man. And you would really root out the corruption. Really. And then one thing that's showing how corrupt this society actually is, though, on this point, is that this guy, DJT, right? he said about how when he was looking for corruption in the government, he said it became harder to find something that's not corrupt. That's what he said. He pretty much said it's become harder to find something that isn't corrupt than it is to find something that's not corrupt. Excuse me, let me say that again. It's been harder to find something that is not corrupt than it's been hard to find something that is corrupt. So he's struggling to find things that's going on within there that are just yet all above board. He's finding it's corruption upon corruption, which is why the scriptures say we would have healed Babylon, but it cannot be healed. It's not possible to undo all the wickedness that's taken place in that land. There's too much. Yahweh's just going to have to destroy it completely. It's did too much, man. If it was possible to try and, like, with all the blood that's been shed in that land and save the land so that the Israelites could have it in the kingdom of heaven, right? Yahweh would have did it. But the balance is not, can't even be scaled back to being fair. So Yahweh's just going to have to destroy that land because of all the wickedness that's took place in it, man. And give it onto, and give more things unto the Israelites elsewhere, man. But as far as earth goes, that land's never going to be lived in again. Now, back on this topic of the joining house to house thing, right? It leads to a lot of wickedness, man. It leads to, like I said, covetousness, adultery, right? Theft. Because if it was all your people living in one place, right, you wouldn't feel like, and this is just again another dumb thing, but let's say it's snowing, right? And and only one of of your actual real family that live in this whole neighborhood has got a snow plow, for example. And this is just a dumb scenario, but I'm just using it as an example, right? You would be able to go and borrow that from them. It wouldn't be no problem in most cases. But in this society, you'll see neighbors steal their neighbors' thing. They just steal from them, right? They just steal from them, man. Like, there's just a whole bunch of things that go on. Whereas if it's a society if it's a neighborhood that's all based on your own people as well, for example, well, there ain't gonna be no covetousness if all the neighbors are just another one of your family. If it's your brother's wife and all of that, or it's your cousins, your nieces, nephew, well, then there ain't gonna be no adultery going on based off that. There ain't gonna be no adultery if every single place that you look around and see people, it's all your family, and then the neighborhood is gonna build up according to one mind. Because Benjamin, for example, don't think exactly the same as Judah. Judah don't think exactly the same as Levi. Levi don't think exactly the same as Gad. But we're all Israelites still at the end of the day. And that whole joining house to house thing is actually very wicked, man. And it leads to a lot of stupid things, a lot of dumb things that go on. Like where it leads to envy, covetousness, like neighbors trying to copycat their neighbor. It leads to people like, I don't know, man. It's just very weird, man. When you have these, and then in a tower flats and all of them kind of environments, well, then it's even worse, right? That's one of the worst environments that can be, to be honest with you, because it's like hundreds of people all with their houses joining. It's a fire hazard, which is what happened with the Grenfell Tower. It's a fire hazard to have that many people all crammed in together. That's not right. Shared houses is not right. Attached houses is not right, even because even one fire, the houses are all supposed to be detached, man. Fully detached house. They're not supposed to be joined onto other people. And people might say, oh, well, if you get more money, then you'll be able to do that. Well, that's not even actually true. Because there's people that live in certain places like London and definitely New York, man. I've seen it. I've looked it up, man. There's people that live in places in London, in New York, right? And they'll be paying like 40 million, 10 million, 40 million, 8 million, 5 million to live in apartments, right? That are as part of a hotel, like a hotel, it's like a hotel in one part, but people live in there as well, and they can buy apartments in there. And they've paid millions, and they don't have no garden. They don't really have a certain living space and stuff like that. They don't really have certain things, but they live in that city, and that city doesn't really have space, or they claim not to do certain things like that. But then they have to live there, or they want to live there because it allows them other financial advantages. So it's not always a thing of, oh, if you've got a certain amount of money, you can always do this and always do that. That's not even true. That's not even true in some in some cases, man, because the way how Esau's designing it is he doesn't want people to have certain things anyway. He wants people to be somewhere that they can be tracked. He wants people to live in smart cities where you do just stay inside of a certain zone. But the way how I'm saying it in terms of the scriptures would be, yeah, you do stay in kind of your own certain zone, but that's your family, a space that your family owns. It's not you're being trapped and crammed in there and you can't ever come out and go nowhere else, which is what Esau is designed to do. But I just thought I'd talk about that for a second, man, because Esau deliberately did this. He deliberately made people be crammed into all one place, but then at the same time, he'll try and pretend like he's against immigration. But he's the one that made most of these melting pot places in the first place. Esau is the inventor of melting pots, and that's why other nations don't really have that, right? They don't really. There'll just be a few people of a different nation in their land. But Esau is the lover of a melting pot. The UK is a melting pot. London for sure, right? In London, you'll see people and you'll think they're going to sound like a Cockney, and they don't. And then you'll see Jake that you'll think's not going to sound like a Cockney, and they sound like one. You'll see people that you think they're going to talk English and they talk French. You see people then you think they're going to talk French and they're speaking Spanish. You see people then you think they're going to talk English and they're speaking Spanish. You might sometimes see like a Latino person over there, and that, like, it's different than even other places of the UK. In other places of England, right? You'll see it there. You'll see that, man. And people can say, nah, that's not true. Yes, it is true. It is true that over here in England, for example, this country is considered a melting pot, and you'll see several different nations, just like how America is more even of a melting pot than over here in England, right? There's even more of a melting pot, man. Because every single nation that exists on the earth is over there. Every single one. And that's thanks to Esau. Because China doesn't have a melting pot like that. Japan doesn't really have a melting pot like that. Right? It's mainly places that Esau is in charge of that they like to do that. Esau is the person that likes to do that kind of thing. And I'm going to end the video there. Shalom.